Ben and Jen, well, first of all, it's important to note that this is just a possible side effect, and officials described it as a small possible risk. Health officials that I spoke to today say that the benefits of this vaccine still outweigh the risk, and with the Delta variant spreading even here in Connecticut, they're encouraging anyone who hasn't been vaccinated yet to do so. The Food and Drug Administration adding a warning about a possible link between the Johnson & Johnson vaccine and Guillain-Barré syndrome.
Guillain-Barré syndrome is a neurological condition where basically an individual develops weakness, usually starting in the lower extremities and then progressing upwards.
The FDA and CDC reviewed reports of about 100 people developing the reaction, out of nearly 13 million people who got the J&J vaccine.
It seems to be a very rare occurrence among all the individuals who have received the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Certainly, not something that the general public would need to worry about with any high frequency.
Health officials hope it won't add to any vaccine hesitancy here in Connecticut. The state is among the top in the U.S. when it comes to vaccine distribution.
I have gotten vaccinated. I did it as soon as that was available, and I'm happy I did, and I think it's allowed us to return to life somewhat.
I chose to get vaccinated because I just feel like for the reopening of the country, it was the right thing to do.
But numbers have been slowing down week to week. The week that ended on April 10th marked the most vaccinations, 315,157, compared to 36,218 the week that ended on July 3rd.
The community outreach has been extensive, and yet we still have less than 10 people per vaccine event that we do. We do vaccine events 2 a day in New Britain, every day at specific places.
Community Health Center is still bringing the vaccine to people with pop-up clinics. Monday, they were at Walnut Hill Park and Stanley Quarter Park in New Britain. No one stopped by at either one.
We try to give as much outreach to the community as possible, but we need people to come here and get vaccinated.
State and health officials trying to encourage people as well, especially amid the spread of the Delta variant, which is currently listed as a variant of concern by the state and seen mainly in unvaccinated individuals.
It is creeping up, and that variant is running around looking for people who haven't been vaccinated.
Health officials are encouraging anyone who hasn't gotten vaccinated yet and has any questions or concerns to reach out to your physician, ask those questions, and get vaccinated. Live in Hartford, Gabby Molina, Fox 61 News.